Mastering supply chain transparency. Radical transparency is the only way to scrub the rot from our supply chain. What steps can we take to foster a culture of transparency and accountability within our organization's supply chain operations, enabling us to promote ethical practices, ensure compliance, and drive operational excellence throughout our entire value chain? To foster a culture of transparency and accountability within an organization's supply chain operations, several steps can be taken to promote ethical practices, ensure compliance, and drive operational excellence throughout the entire value chain. Firstly, it is essential to establish a clear and concise policy that outlines the organization's commitment to transparency and accountability within its supply chain operations. This policy should be communicated to all stakeholders, including suppliers, employees, and customers, to ensure that everyone is aware of the organization's expectations and values. The policy should also be regularly reviewed and updated to ensure it remains relevant and effective. Secondly, the organization should conduct regular risk assessments to identify potential risks and vulnerabilities within its supply chain operations. This includes assessing the organization's suppliers, contractors, and partners to identify any potential ethical or compliance risks. The risk assessment should be conducted using a combination of data analytics, site visits, and stakeholder engagement to ensure a comprehensive understanding of the supply chain operations. Thirdly, the organization should implement a supplier code of conduct that outlines the minimum ethical and compliance standards expected of its suppliers. The code of conduct should be communicated to all suppliers and should include provisions related to labor practices, health and safety, environmental sustainability, and business ethics. The organization should also establish a system for monitoring and auditing supplier compliance with the code of conduct. Fourthly, the organization should establish a comprehensive training program for its employees and suppliers on ethical practices, compliance, and transparency within the supply chain. The training program should include modules on anti-corruption, labor rights, environmental sustainability, and data privacy, among others. The training program should be regularly reviewed and updated to ensure it remains relevant and effective. Fifthly, the organization should establish a whistleblower protection policy to encourage employees and suppliers to report any unethical or non-compliant practices within the supply chain. The policy should ensure that whistleblowers are protected from retaliation and that all reports are thoroughly investigated and addressed. Sixthly, the organization should establish a system for tracking and monitoring its supply chain operations in real time. This includes implementing a digital platform for supplier management, inventory tracking, and shipment monitoring. The organization should also establish a system for monitoring and reporting on key performance indicators, KPIs, related to transparency, accountability, and operational excellence within the supply chain. Seventhly, the organization should engage with its stakeholders, including NGOs, industry associations, and government agencies, to stay informed about emerging risks and best practices in supply chain transparency and accountability. This includes participating in industry-specific initiatives and collaborations to drive operational excellence and promote ethical practices within the supply chain. Eighthly, the organization should establish a system for continuous improvement and innovation within its supply chain operations. This includes encouraging a culture of experimentation and innovation among employees and suppliers, and investing in research and development to identify new technologies and solutions that can drive operational excellence and transparency within the supply chain. Ninthly, the organization should recognize and reward employees and suppliers who demonstrate exceptional commitment to transparency, accountability, and operational excellence within the supply chain. This includes recognizing and rewarding ethical behavior, reporting of near misses, and implementation of innovative solutions that drive operational excellence. Tenthly, the organization should establish a system for regular reporting and disclosure of its supply chain operations and performance. This includes publishing an annual report on its supply chain operations, including data on ethical practices, compliance, and operational excellence. The report should be made available to all stakeholders, including customers, investors, and NGOs. By taking these steps, an organization can foster a culture of transparency and accountability within its supply chain operations, promote ethical practices, ensure compliance, and drive operational excellence throughout its entire value chain.